Hey guys, welcome back to Always Kadasia, where I'm always Kadasia and you're always you. And today we're going to be talking about independence and why I think independence isn't as good as people say it is. So let's get into the video. So we all have different personalities, okay? Some people depend on others more than they depend on themselves, and others depend on themselves more than others. And I am one of those people that I depend on myself a lot more than others. So I can speak about this. I always give a little story time because you guys know what I'm talking about, right? One of the issues that I dealt with growing up was being very hyper independent. And a lot of people are talking about it now, but I feel like the word is being thrown around. Honestly, every word is always being thrown around. You know what I'm saying? So I want to give you a little definition from verywellmind.com, and they give some good definitions and kind of the traits of being a hyper independent person. So hyper independence refers to an individual attempt to be fully independent in all things, even when it's not helpful or if they genuinely need help or support from others. When somebody's need to be independent goes as an unhealthy habit, this is hyper independence. So basically what it's saying is a hyper independent person is someone that needs help, but they don't ask for it. They're so independent in themselves in a very unhealthy way, basically. So if they're literally struggling and they're not asking for anyone for help, that's typically someone that's a hyper independent person. And I feel like we've all been that at least a time in our life, some people more than others. And kind of some hyper independent traits is you're typically an overachiever. So you're always trying to complete these tasks and you put too much on your plate. You refuse to ask for help or delegate. So if you're struggling with something and asking someone could probably, lighten the load, you're like, no, because I'm Superwoman. You're typically guarded in relationships, which I can relate to that. It's basically you don't let people see your full self, and it's about being vulnerable, which is like, that's so much struggle with, girl. And secretiveness. So it's kind of the same with guarded in relationships. So basically with being secretive, you're kind of scared that people will talk about you, or you don't have trust in people. So you kind of keep things to yourself. So it's kind of that accountability in that way for yourself. And you mistrust people. You don't trust them. So you're like, no, you're not coming into my life, honey. No, ma'am. You have probably a few close friends or very few long-term relationships. And you probably get stressed or burnt out pretty quickly, and you don't like feeling like you're a needy person. So all in all, those are traits about being a hyper independent person. So we are going to talk a little bit about hyper independence, but I want to talk to you about like my story and why it is important to not focus so much on being independent. The first thing I'll say is I literally blame social media for not everything, well, almost everything. It's because America at least is such an individualistic country that everyone's about, oh, you get it on your own, this American dream, all these things, which is a lie, which is not a dream. And I feel like in society, we're always pushed to be better than somebody, to be competitive, to, all these independent, be a strong Black woman, or, you're going to be the one that's going to take your family out of, all that stuff. And I think we have a lot of pressure put onto ourselves. And I think it creates, so a lot of this is not our faults, but also with childhood, everything goes back to childhood. Like as a child, there's probably a time where you didn't feel like your parents were there, your family was there, your friends were there. You might have been neglected, abused, all these types of things. And the only way you felt comfortable is when you picked yourself up. As a child, you might have been like, I got to pick myself up because no one is there for me. So that's where hyper independence can come from too. Even adults, like it can come really in any time, in any way. And my story is I have always been an independent person, like since I came out the womb, it seems. I am the oldest child, so that probably makes a lot of sense. But I remember throughout school and everything, like I was always like getting good grades, in sports, like really trying to put this show on. And also, I just didn't really ask for help. I never asked for help for my homework. If I was struggling, if I was in pain, I would keep it to myself. Like I was pretty guarded, like when it comes to my emotions and feelings. And I just wasn't really able to like communicate it well. And I feel like my family just wasn't the best when it comes to stuff like that. And they're like, oh, you're going to be the one that's going to do this out the family. You're going to be the success. And I'm like, I am grateful and I definitely want to be successful. But when people kind of focus on your achievements, and I think that's another thing about being so independent, is like sometimes people see you as what your job occupation is. They see you as what you can do for others. They see what awards you have. And I feel like it feeds into that independence mind, because this is what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with being independent. Literally being independent is a needed thing to survive and be sufficient in life. But when you're so independent, you forget community. You forget being around people. Like our generation, we're probably the loneliest generation, because no one even knows how to speak to people anymore. No one says hey to people anymore. It's just all on the internet, and you have these fake online friends you never met and may never see in your life. So it's really sad. And also, we're at the peak of loneliness. Like everyone's just so lonely, and it feels so hard to trust people. So I understand if you're independent, like you have every right. I mean, you have a feeling. I struggle with it. And I want you to know that you're not alone. So many other people struggle with it. I struggle with it too. So I want to give you this. This is more like a rantish type video, but I wanted to give you like a little bit of tips and tricks to kind of fight this independence a little bit. The first thing is, independence is not a bad thing. It's just when you're extreme hyper independent, that's when it's unhealthy. The first thing is, people like to say that, oh, when you have a lot of friends, there's more drama, there's more this and that. And I used to think that way. But girl, the studies show the more friends you have, the more happier you are, because you have people you can depend on in community and you trust. So don't listen to those independent people that are like, I'm just for myself. And it's good. Self-love is great, but we need community and people to thrive. We are social beings. Even if you're more of an introvert, you still need some people in your life to, succeed. Depression is a real thing, and it's not really that great when you don't have too many people around you. So studies show that. So the first thing I want you to do is think about maybe 1 to 2 things in your life that is kind of, that hyper independence or that independence is kind of ruining your life. So basically, maybe for friendships, you are kind of struggling with asking your friends for help. Or let's just say you're having a bad day. Instead of, sharing it with somebody or whatever, you are holding it inside. Or financial, struggles. Instead of asking for help, you kind of just struggle. And I'm one of those, because sometimes I'll just sit there and struggle. And sometimes you don't have people. It's true. So instead of maybe people, maybe resources. So find 1 to 2 things. And then I want you to write 1 thing a day that's going to help you be more successful. So if that's just, I don't know, if it's just maybe asking for help once a day, maybe someone at the grocery store, if you can't reach something, ask somebody for help. Or if you need a friend to just give you a little bit of tiny advice, like that's asking for help. Or if you need help with a video, something. And the worst thing they can say is no. They're not gonna be like, oh, why would you ask? It's the worst they can say is no, and that's okay. The second thing I want you to think about is meet yourself where you're at. Trauma takes time. It takes time to heal. So don't be upset if you fall back, because I fall back all the time. There's still times where I want control and I don't trust people. And I will tell you this, I feel like a lot of people that are more hyper independent or more independent like myself is that we are scared of hurt. We don't trust. We're scared to be put down and let down, because we've been let down and betrayed a lot in our lives. And the thing I will say to that and what I've learned is you can't predict the future. Literally, you may get hurt, you may get put down, but you took the step to trust and be vulnerable, even in the smallest ways. So I want you to be proud of yourself and not be angry because of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's times where I trusted and it didn't work out, and it took me a while to try to get back to it. I'm still trying to get back to it now, but I want you to know that it takes time and you got to meet yourself where you're at, because you got to crawl before you walk. So that's another thing. The third thing I would say is reflection. So I think it's important to really write down and reflect because sometimes you don't know your patterns. So I think writing down, like, maybe search up a prompt on ChatGPT, be like, hey, ChatGPT, I struggle with hyper independence. Like, what can I do to, make that a little bit better? And, ChatGPT will give you some prompts. And I think writing it at least a couple times a week to see where your patterns are is helpful, because sometimes we don't even know our patterns and we don't really acknowledge it. And that's really it. This was really a rant type video, so I kind of just went all over the place. But I am so grateful that you guys watched, and thank you so much. I love you guys and see you. I am posting at the moment one video every 2 weeks, just because I'm learning how to be more consistent. And yeah, so thank you guys. Bye. Love you.